Not too long ago, our community lost a very special person, Mr. Don Gould. Don was a retiree from a career as a strategic business segment manager. He was a husband, a father, a grandfather, a coach, an official for many Park District sports, and also an official for IHSA football for 32 years. That's probably why Don was such a passionate Chicago Bears fan and season ticket holder. On top of all this, Don was a sports announcer for Channel 6 for over 20 years. Let's listen now as our Elk Grove television staff and crew pay tribute to Don as a dedicated volunteer and human being.
From the beautiful campus of Elk Grove High School, Channel 6 presents Mid-Suburban League Basketball Game of the Week. Along with Bill Beaupre, I'm Don Gould. And Bill, tonight we have the Huskies, the Hersey Huskies.
I was privileged enough to know Don Gould for announcing both baseball and basketball games. And the one thing I do remember about Don was his ability to analyze the game. He was involved with sports for so long that he not only announced what was happening on the field, but he wasn't afraid also to let us know what he thinks might be going on in the future or what might have just happened. So you kind of learned as well during the game as well as him announcing the game. But probably most that I know about Don was his ability to enjoy himself and the people around him to enjoy themselves. So when I announced the games with him, we always had a laugh, we always had a good time, and that's probably the most memorable thing I remember of Don was we always had a laugh and had a good time at the baseball games or the basketball games that we did.
From Aldridge Gymnasium on the beautiful campus of Elk Grove High School, Channel 6, your community network, presents the Mid-Suburban League Game of the Week. Along with Ed Hauser, I'm Don Gould. And Ed, what a wonderful way to start a basketball season.
Worked pretty closely with Don Gould when it came to sports. He was always my contact for sports announcing, and he always came to every game with a smile on his face, or a "Hey kiddo." He's a very, very nice, very animated man. He always told stories about the old days at Channel 6, funny stories of him announcing with Ed Hauser. We're all very shocked to hear about his passing, and we're really going to miss him. And we'll miss you, kiddo.
Welcome to Channel 6 Elk Grove TV. I'm Don Gould, and it's that time again this year. Basketball is right around the corner, so today we have a preview show with the coaches from Elk Grove and Conant High School.
Don Gould was probably one of the most professional people I've ever worked with doing sports. He was always prepared. He knew exactly what he was going to say. He knew what the game was about. He always had tidbits about players and coaches and things like that. And he was always ready. He could do basketball. He could do baseball, football. It didn't matter what sport, wrestling. He could do it all. And he always did it in a professional way. Plus, on top of all that, he had a really good heart. He was always smiling, always calling people kiddo, and you know, it was fun. It was always fun to work with him, and I really appreciated that. You know, I miss that mostly about him. that he was always quick with a smile and a warm comment, and that was always, it always made me feel better when we were on shoots, knowing that Don was going to be the guy behind the microphone describing what was going on.
From the beautiful campus of James B. Conant High School, Channel 6 presents Mid-Suburban League Soccer. Tonight's contest features the host, Conant Cougars, entertaining the Grenadiers from Elk Grove.
I've been working with Channel 6 for a long time, and as far as I can remember, Don Gould was always one of the main sports announcers for basketball, for both boys and girls, and also with baseball and softball, along with Ed Hauser. So I've worked many years with Don, and he, in addition to those sporting events, he also helped us out with other shows and also with some other sports like football and soccer, which was probably his least favorite thing to announce. But he always was willing to come in and do that for us. And many times he announced soccer alone. And like I said, it wasn't one of his favorites, but he always came in, always was very knowledgeable about every sport that he announced. He would come in with a smile every single time, was always really upbeat and enthusiastic. It was obvious that he had such a passion for sports, and I always remember Don would always refer to me and some other staff members as kiddo, and that's something that I just hold dearly, because it was just, I don't know, it was just something that, you know, only came from Don all the time. And I just think that sports won't be the same without Don, and we will greatly miss him here over at Channel 6.
Says Megan Fisher will start at guard, and Carol King will start at guard for the host Cougars. Welcome back to Channel 6, your community network, and we are going to run through a regional update now of elections throughout our viewing audience, with the exception, of course, of Rolling Meadows, who have no elections this year.
I first met Don when he was involved in boys football. Don is a ticketed official for the IHSA for football, and he would volunteer and officiate the boys' football games for several years. He was always volunteering, and he's a very competent official. So that's how I got to meet him. And as a matter of fact, on some of the broadcasts I did for Channel 6 of high school games, it was not uncommon to see Don on the field as part of that officiating crew. But then later on, I was going to be by myself one night because Frank Ciangi had to be out of town doing a broadcast for Channel 6, and I asked Don if he'd work in the booth with me. And he agreed to, and enjoyed it. And then he and Ed Hauser started doing basketball games about the same time, the same year we started doing football games. And I believe he and Ed Hauser have worked together ever since, and they do girls' softball games as well. And as a matter of fact, both those guys are recipients of the Community Spirit Award for the amount of hours and talent they volunteer. But Don just was always smiling. Don, over the years, is always in the booth. Tune in Channel 6, you hear his happy voice. he will be missed. Don was a great man, a friend of everybody. I don't know of anybody in the 25 years that ever met Don that didn't smile thinking about him or like him.
It's got to be at least 15, 16 years ago now, at least.
And your partner?
Well, my partner here, Eddie Hauser. Now, we have a kind of interesting, in basketball, I do play-by-play and Eddie does color. When we do baseball, Eddie does play-by-play, I do color. So we kind of flip-flop depending on which season it is.
Don and I were together, worked together for better than 10 years, and during that time I came to realize that he was a very kind, considerate, and caring person. And I also realized in working with him during that time that he was an excellent play-by-play announcer, and he had the ability to verbalize what was happening while it was happening. And this doesn't sound too important, but it is important, especially when you're doing a fast-paced game like a basketball game. And Don he was always on the money with his descriptive analysis of the game and what was happening. It was literally unfolding right in front of him, and he was verbalizing it for the TV viewer. After I stepped aside from Channel 6 2 years ago, I hadn't seen Don in about a year, and we had a chance meeting one afternoon in the Jewel, and this was 5 or 6 weeks before Don passed. And he told me that he was retired now and that he was enjoying his free time. And then we reminisced about some of the games we had done through the years. And then he popped up with a question. He said, "Ed, why don't you come back and we'll do some more games together?" And I said, "Don, you know, that sounds like a good idea." But of course we know that never came to fruition. And Don was one of a kind. He was enthusiastic, energetic, whether it was a championship basketball game or a Little League baseball game with 8- and 9-year-olds. And certainly I feel that he'll be an important part of the Channel 6 history as it relates to sports programming, and that's as it should be. And lastly, I would say, Don, if you can hear me today, I miss you, good buddy.